Hello and welcome to lankacricket.com, where we're going to discuss the first test match that Sri Lanka played against New Zealand in Hagley Park in Christchurch. The South Island of New Zealand, really beautiful place, about 1 million people, it's huge, it's got one road. So most of the people that were actually on the South Island turned up for the game, and that's why you found about 20,000 people there at some point. But it was an amazing game for Sri Lanka because of the fight that they showed. Now, this is something that a lot of people will miss in the fact that we lost the game, but the fact remains that Sri Lanka came back really strongly, scored 400 plus in the second innings of the game. Dimuth Karunaratne really showed some character, and also the bowlers tried yeomanly to get as many New Zealand wickets as they could in the second innings of that game, despite the fact that New Zealand were chasing only about 126 runs to win. But let's go back to the start of that test match. We had a green top at Hagley Park. Angelo Matthews saw it, had a look at his bowlers and said, Machan, can you sort this out? And then Suranga Lakmal probably said, Dala Balamu. And Dhammika Prasad wasn't playing, so he said, Puluang, Puluang. And then we had Shamin Deranga also, who probably did this and was like, let's try. And that's why Angelo Matthews went with winning the toss and bowling. Don Bradman said many years ago, if you win the toss 9 times out of 10, you bat. The 10th time, you think about it and then you bat. So why would he go against his old adage of Donald Bradman? Because he knew that his fast bowlers, if given the right assistance, had the game to break into the New Zealand batting lineup and try and really have them on the ropes when it came to lunch or tea on the first day. And the problem for Angelo Matthews is that was a good decision. A lot of people are saying now Angelo Matthews shouldn't have batted or shouldn't have bowled first and things like that, but that's not the point. The point is, on day one, Sri Lanka had taken 3 wickets before Brendon McCullum came into bat. They were less than 120 for 3 when Brendon McCullum came into bat. They would have had them on the ropes if they had them at 140 for 5. But the fact is, on the first day alone, Sri Lanka dropped 4 catches. Now that is the biggest issue there. So instead of taking 3 wickets or 5 wickets on the first day, they could have been in the run in business with 8 wickets on the first day. So that is the problem with the Sri Lanka side at the moment. We don't have a batting problem, we don't have a bowling problem, we have a fielding problem. And that is a problem that can be easily fixed if the authorities, the coaches realize how big a problem it really is, because this is the discipline that's letting this entire Sri Lanka team down. Suranga Lakmal is not the greatest bowler in the world. He's not Mitchell Johnson. He's not Jimmy Anderson. But he does a job. He bowls as fast as he can. He bowls as straight as he can. And he's going to create chances. So just like if you're a football team that doesn't create many chances, then your striker has got to be good enough to actually convert the chances you do create. So which is why Sri Lanka, with an above average bowling side, need to be an excellent fielding side to convert those above average bowlers' chances into actual wickets, which then result in winning test matches. So can Sri Lanka's bowlers take 20 wickets? Yes, they can, but they need to be helped by really good bowling. Now the good news is that Ranganaherath is back for the second test match, which starts in Wellington in a couple of days' time. But who was the guy that filled in the gap? With Ranganaherath's leg injury, we had Tarindu Kaushal coming into the side as well, and he did a brilliant job with the ball. I thought he really troubled the New Zealand batsman, but unfortunately the New Zealand batsman didn't really have a lot of pressure. They had already had the luxury of a 195 run blitz from Brendon McCullum, just came in and slaughtered everybody. That's probably one way to play on those pitches. Dimuth Karunaratne showed the other way to play on those pitches, which is to be very dour and to make sure you accumulate your runs. Brendon McCullum did exactly the opposite, and we dropped him a couple of times as well. So that was where I thought Tarindu Kaushal did really well, coming in and making sure he troubled those batsmen as much as he could. And batsmen under pressure don't really struggle. At this level, it's not about ability, it's about your mind and whether you can face that bowler in the context of the game. And New Zealand were never really under pressure at any point. So the difference for me between the two sides, Sri Lanka scored 545 runs in that game. And New Zealand scored just a few more, but obviously lost a lot less wickets. So that's the comparison we have to make. Is our batting side as good as New Zealand's? Yes, absolutely. But we need guys to score and score big. And what Dimuth Karunaratne showed is that we have the guys who can do that. Kumar Sangakkara has been in the nets apparently from the time he got out. In the first test match, he spent his entire Christmas in the nets and entire New Year in the nets. And Angelo Matthews says that when Kumar Sangakkara fails, it's a nightmare for the coaches because they've just got to throw balls at him from morning till evening. And that's the testament to how hard this guy works and how desperate he is to make runs in what could be his final test match away from home for Sri Lanka. So that's one guy who can really score big runs. Karunaratne has showed that as well. And what this has done, it has put a little bit of pressure back on New Zealand. This bowling side needs to think now, okay, they've got a guy who scored 150. They've got Kumar Sangakkara coming in at one down. They've got the guy who's got one of the highest averages in 2014, Angelo Matthews, who's batting at 80, to come in at number 5. So they have the batsman to take this game away from us, and that's going to create a little bit of doubt in the bowler's mind as well. Take nothing away from New Zealand. They're a brilliant side and they're a fantastic bowling unit, especially Tim Southee and Trent Boult. They've been an excellent left-arm opening pair for New Zealand for a long time now. And Trent Boult is one of those really underrated bowlers. He's like a fast chum in the bars. He swings the ball both ways and really troubles batsmen with his pace. You look at the ball that got Karunaratne, who'd been there for 300 odd balls, who had scored 150. The ball that got him cleaned him up, squared him up, pitched on middle and off, and then went and hit the top of off stump. It was just an amazing delivery, and that's what Trent Boult is capable of. So don't take anything away from Sri Lanka's batting lineup, because I think we did pretty well at the end of the day against some very good bowlers too. So what do we need to take away from this game? The fact that we need to improve our fielding. That is the number one priority as far as I'm concerned, because the guys are in good nick. They've played a lot of one-day cricket. They don't need to play too much in these conditions, because that's just the way it is. When you go in, you have to learn on the job, you acclimatize on the job, so you can't make that an excuse. But what you can do is make sure that you take the catches that come your way, the half chances that come your way, and that is all down to preparation. Trevor Penny was brought in after the India tour. It was probably a week or two before the England tour, and when teams are on tour, they can't really practice. So are we going to see Trevor Penny's influence being diluted because he's not getting enough time with the team? Are we going to see it? Are we going to see him focusing only on the one-day squad? And most of the one-day squad, the key players, some of them are in the test squad as well. So is he going to have enough time to raise this fielding unit to a level where we were in 1996 when we won the World Cup, where average bowling sides can defend totals and can do it because their fielders back them up. So that's something that we need to think about as well. So in terms of the test match, I don't share this whole doom and gloom aspect, because I don't think we did too badly. We had a guy who scored a huge 100 and scored it under pressure. We had Kaushal Silva, who batted for long periods of time as well, and we had Angelo Matthews, who scored a couple of 50s too, so he's continuing that rich vein of form. We have Prasanna Jayawardene, who's coming off a long layoff from cricket. Niroshan Dickwella, who may be replaced for the next game because he's playing as an out-and-out batsman, and maybe Dinesh Chandimal needs to be given that chance because he's going to be playing in the World Cup. He's probably going to be in the 15th, so should he be given more opportunities in New Zealand, even if it's playing Test cricket, to get his form back? Yes, I think he should. So in the short term, maybe Dinesh Chandimal coming in for Niroshan Dickwella in the second Test match. But apart from that, nothing really to get too alarmed about. It's a loss away from home, and yes, people lose Test matches away from home, so don't worry too much about it. I think Angelo made the right decision. I don't think his fielding side backed him up when he chose to bowl first, and I think if he wins the toss, he will probably choose to bowl first in Wellington as well, because the reports coming in from Wellington are the fact that top that we saw at Hagley Park was not nearly as green as the one we're going to have in Wellington. So let's wait and see how that plays out. But for the moment, the only changes I will probably see are Dinesh Chandimal for Niroshan Dickwella and Rangan Herath coming in, obviously, for Tanitha Kaushal. Will Sri Lanka play two spinners? Probably not. So we'll have Suranga Lakmal, maybe Nuwan Pradeep, and Shami Deranga, maybe Dhammika Prasad. Out of those, we'll probably play three paces. So let's wait and see how that one turns out. So a good performance, I think, in the first test. Still a long way to go, but one eye is always on that World Cup, and I don't think we should be expecting too much from this test series. It will serve as an acclimatizer for the World Cup. Just give us time to spend in New Zealand, get used to the conditions, get used to the people, get confident and comfortable staying where we are staying, check out these World Cup venues and towns, and familiarize ourselves, because that's what cricket is all about, just being familiar with what you do. Why do people do well in their home grounds? Because they're not under any pressure. When they walk in, they know where the toilet is, they know where they hang their bags. That's the stuff that really can sometimes play on your mind, which means you're not devoting your entire attention to the job at hand. So if Sri Lanka do go around these grounds and make sure they know where the visiting dressing rooms are, the home dressing rooms are, and just have a walk around the city, familiarize themselves, have a favorite restaurant when they go back to Christchurch or Auckland or Wellington or wherever it may be, then that makes life a lot more familiar for them, and I think that will serve them in good stead. So let's look at this as a stepping stone to the World Cup and not a test series in isolation. Let's not expect too much for it, and I think we will be more than happy going into the second test match. We'll be back on lankacricket.com previewing the second test match and reviewing it, of course. We'll see if we can bring you day by day roundups as well, but if not, we'll definitely look at the game after it's done and dusted. So for the moment, Happy New Year.